Okay. No. Don't worry about the music. Okay. Let's get started. Welcome to Each One Teach Two. This is our symposium virtually. We've got a great little venue here and some wonderful people that are willing to share and talk about their experiences and their stories on how we can grow and develop and build a sustainable arts culture in breaking. I'm Jeff from UBL, formerly UBL, now UBL, and this is Each One Teach Two Symposium. We would have loved to have, a crowd of people here and interact and network with each other, but unfortunately, we're in a position right now where we have to be creative and we have to be resourceful. And we're lucky to have great partners and a great team. I'm lucky to have a great team here involved, and we're going to try to present this as authentically as possible and try to keep you guys kind of involved while you're watching at home. So I'd like to throw to our video presentation with B-Boy Rhythm. B-Boy Rhythm's from Swift Characters out in Rhode Island. And he's an educator, he's a B-Boy, and he's got a lot to say about how important it is for us to invest in ourselves and invest into the culture. So this is B-Boy Rhythm.
One thing that's really special about breaking is that it connects us to a way of being that is actually older than our institutions. It's older than the United States of America because this is coming from Afro-diasporic traditions. This is coming from Africanist performance models, and it connects us to energies from all different cultures, indigenous cultures, cultures of Asia, cultures of Europe, Middle East, and we're just activating that energy now. Because we can tap into that, it gives us a sort of compass to deal with what's going on in the world and what's going on in our lives. The most important part is that we're able to still tap into that energy. And it comes from the music we listen to, it comes from the way we practice our dance, the kind of questions we ask ourselves, and the ways that we come together. If we're not feeling where the dance really comes from, if we're not feeling our own history, then we're gonna lose that spirit in the breaking, and we need to maintain that spirit in breaking. Nobody can tell you where the dance comes from except for you, and where the dance comes from you is really being original and letting the dance come from that source, because that's actually where it's connected.
When you're young, it's hard to have a vision for it. It's hard to think of why are you breaking. So you just do it. It changes all the time, or it evolves over the years. I try to improve, I try to get better, I try to find a reason of why I was even doing it, and I think it was the fear of not doing it. At that time, right when I got out of high school, my uncle passed away, and he died of, the only thing the doctor said was stress. He died on the job, he died working at that place, and the only cause they could find was stress related to work. I kind of rejected all of that, and I said to myself, I'll never work for anybody ever again. If I were to try to figure out now, like, why do I break? It's just like straight up liberation. It's slowing down time. It's meditation. You know, it's breaking the matrix. It's become so much that, like, not doing it to me feels like I'm not being me.
Why do I break?
Yeah.
For me, it's a choice and a lifestyle that I won't let go. You know, relieve my stress, put my emotions on the floor. You know, build bonds with other dancers who also, you know, appreciate this culture, this dance, this hip hop.
If I wouldn't be breaking, then I would be doing something else, you know. Because of breaking, that I had the courage to overcome my disease that I was born with, and because of breaking, that I became a better person, a better son, and I learned to be humble, to be thankful, and treasure the moment, you know, and just love my family. If I wouldn't be doing this, then I would be doing something else, doing drugs, being in a gang, which I did, but because of breaking, that I got it out, and I chose to live a positive life, and chose to express myself through breaking, and respect the art of it.
You know, it's when I started breaking, I came from a very dark place mentally and emotionally. So breaking was kind of that light that kind of said, you know, don't continue down this path. Here's a light. Here's a way that you can really do something with your life that's positive, that you can feel good about yourself with. So I'd say breaking to me is just, you know, it's everything to me. You know, the hip hop culture, the philosophy, the companionship within the crew aspect, being in a crew, being in a family. You know, there's nothing else better, in my opinion, than breaking.
Nice. Oh, okay. Tell you what's going on.
Breaking to me, it's trying to understand life. I feel very inspired being around my friends, you know, just watching people dance, getting down together. It feels like something changes in my brain at certain moments. It's like my awareness evolves to include something someone showed me. I think that as a society, we misunderstand art sometimes, and we treat it more like entertainment than a discovery. But something that I learned from breaking is that it can be a spirit science. To me, it's about locating the source of integrity and then comparing that with the other experiences that you have in life. And dance, at least to me, it's like all of the different gestures that I make in my spirit to maintain my integrity. I just try to let that be recorded into my style. And then when I break, it's like I share my best insights and I practice walking through my pathways in the present moment. All of us have different methodologies and experiences. And what that makes me think is that we learn a lot from each other without even realizing it.
Robin Hood theory. I seek son, deceive none. For each one must teach one. At least one must flow and show the structure of freedom. It's me.
That's where I think the bond of my crew comes from. I feel like that's where the bond of the scene comes from, because we all, whether we realize it or not, we're making each other better people. It starts as a language that we create to understand our own struggles, our own experiences, and then it becomes a language we can speak together. We teach each other through our dance, and what started as an investment in oneself naturally becomes an investment in the people around you. What's interesting to me is that the ethics and priorities of our dance are set up in a way that protects this process, that allows us to invest in ourselves and invest in each other. sometimes we learn a lot just by watching the way another person is, and I feel like that's part of each one teach one. Taking the real vibe and the real communication and letting it be raw and just trying to create a situation where that can be understood. That's what I think we should work towards. As an educator, I try to create a space in my classroom where my students respect the values of our culture, practice dance in their own life, and learn from one another. The same way that we learn in the crew, why should we educate so much differently?
And that was B-Boy Rhythm. Swift characters in the investment of culture, investing in ourselves, investing back through communication in the way that we communicate through the dance. Next up, we have a trailblazer here. Here in Canada, we have Martine from Loop Sessions, Toronto, and he's gonna share his story on his experience on how to grow a beat culture here in Canada, and some tricks of the trade here. So this is Martine.
Hey guys, and check. Just really happy to be here. And so yeah, my name is Martin Añón. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I moved here barely 2 years ago. It's gonna be 2 years in December. And like together with a group of friends, we co-run an event called Loop Sessions Toronto. And Loop Sessions is right now it's a big community all around the world, and it's a series of independently organized sessions. And we have sessions. I mean, there are Loop Sessions in Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto. We have one in Buenos Aires, Brussels, like all around the world. And it started, I think, like around 6 years ago in Brazil. And there's like two producers from Montreal, and Dr. Matt and Lou Pienza, who in 2016 they went to São Paulo to present their project Lou Pilots, and at a place called Casa Brasilis. And they found out about this event going on there I think they were doing that every week. And these guys in Brazil were getting together and they were like selecting one record and sampling from the same record and just making beats that day with the same sample, each one of them doing their own thing and just showcasing and sharing with each other. So Mahdi, Dr. Matt and Lou, they went back to Montreal and reached out back to these guys like, hey, can we start like our own thing? It's just like kind of like building on the work you guys are doing in Brazil. And they called it Loop Sessions. At the time, I'm guessing it was just Loop Sessions. And then one of the guys there from Brussels, he started one in Brussels. And I think it's just 2 years, the movement spread to like many different cities. Right now, you have sessions like in France and like Australia. It's just like all over the globe. And like each session is independently organized, and we all have like our own thing going in our own way. Brussels does some like amazing interviews. Then here in Toronto, we have curators, and we do like we limit the number of participants. We always just have like our own like way of like doing things. And for me, as a newcomer to Canada, really being new to like the hip hop culture and the vinyl culture here, and to be honest, like myself, I'm not even like a record header. Like I wouldn't like collect vinyl records, but I was back home, and I was not happy personally with how my career, professional career as a musician, a music producer, was developing. So when I moved to Toronto, I knew I had to like start something that would help me connect with people. And I thought the best way of hacking that situation, instead of just like reaching out to a lot of people and asking them to listen to my music, was like, okay, why don't I connect with people who are willing to create a space? And that's how I reached out to the guys in Montreal, and they connected me with some other producers in Toronto, and DJ Drumstick and Pursuit Groups, and together we decided to start Loop Sessions. And it was just like the perfect way for me to get introduced into the community. And luckily, it was really well accepted in the community. And it's just like a year and a half, it grew so much. And we were able to reach out to a lot of organizations who were like extremely supportive. And good. Yeah, and that's pretty much about Loop Sessions. You can find us like in Instagram, Loop Sessions Toronto. If you look Loop Sessions on Instagram, you'll find all the other Loop Sessions around the world, and there are like new cities coming up all the time. So yeah, like don't hesitate to reach out if you ever want to participate. And that's pretty much it about Loop Sessions.
Yes, 1 2 1 2. We're gonna keep it moving right along. What's up, everybody? My name is B-Boy Afternoon from Montreal, representing MTL B-Boying. We're a collective that's in Montreal to just support the community when it comes to breaking. A little less about that, a little more about the next person we're bringing on stage. They've done a lot. If you've heard about Unity Charity, they are the founder behind that charity, looking to help youth and people through hip-hop, specifically in the mental health area. He's been up north, a little bit everywhere in the world. He's spoken in front of many, many people, performed in front of many, many people, and has recently released a book called Building Unity, which I have read, and that is really good. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for B-Boy Pieces.
What up, what up, what up? This is pretty strange, but really cool that we're doing this here, live from your home, from the stage in this amazing way. Shout out to UBL for putting this on, and to all the funders for making this possible. And that's actually why I'm here to chat today, is I worked a lot over the last 15 years in building Unity Charity, as Afternoon mentioned, and just this organization that came from our own passions of breaking as a b-boy for over 20 years in MEC crew, and repping, battling, all over the world, and also here at home. And we wanted to really do more for the community. And mental health has personally affected my life quite a lot, from my family to my own experiences in life around mental health challenges. And I just wanted to do something about it. So we got a bunch of b-boys together, a bunch of spoken word artists, a bunch of graffiti writers, and like we're in my basement and coming up with ideas. And we took this idea to use hip hop to improve youth mental health and bring it into schools in an authentic way. And we grew that as a bunch of teenagers. And today, over 15 years, almost 17 years later, it's employing over 70 artists across the country, and raises over $1 million a year to like employ the community members. So today, I'm going to share with you some of the ways we raise money so that more people out in the community who want to pursue their art can raise money through available sources that exist that b-boys and b-girls and hip-hop are often not tapping into. So my call to all of you today is apply, and not just simply apply, but if you want to apply and you're going to apply for funding or pitch, I'm happy to connect with you and support you through that, because I really believe that there are not enough hip-hop artists putting proposals together for available funding. And I'm going to break it down. So it's not just like throwing that at you. I'm going to actually share with you like some of the common barriers, like, hey, I think I'm going to get denied. It's a waste of my time. I don't have the networks. I don't have the connections. They're not going to fund hip-hop because, they only fund the ballet. Like, these are some of the things that might be going through your mind when you're thinking about getting funding. So I want to debunk a lot of those things, because there's a lot of funders that I speak with on a regular basis that are looking for proposals, authentic proposals from people doing real work in the community, and they want to fund your work. So, the money is available, and I think that people also worry that there's strings attached. I've heard that a lot. Oh, there's strings attached. Well, yes, there are parameters in which these grants happen, but you can negotiate and sort of let funders know what your values are. So at Unity, we were very clear about what our values are and what needed to happen in a hip-hop context, and we wouldn't budge on those things. And when funders respected us and trusted us, which is the fundamental way that we got funding, was through building trusting relationships, we were able to negotiate what we needed at the table. And I think we don't have to necessarily just take what's given to us in the way that it's given to us. We can say, hey, this rule doesn't make sense for us because breaking takes place in a competitive format, and there's a rule on your application that says we don't support things that are in a competitive format. So instead of saying, oh, we can't apply, we actually go back to the funders and say, that's inequitable, because that's not how this art form is presented. It's one of the ways in which it's presented, but very on the cover, if you're saying that we can't apply because of that, well, we have to have a conversation about that. It's not, oh, I'm not going to apply, oh, those funders, da-da-da. It's actually, let's go to the table and bring 10 other organizers who are organizing events that bring in as many, if not more people than the ballet does, and say, this is inequitable, we need to change this rule. And that rule has since been changed at some arts councils. So this is just an example of how we can both advocate, but also get hip-hop and breaking funded, because, again, I want to encourage folks to go after that funding because it is available. Also sponsorships, so I've come to talk about a lot of different things. I've taken like a 1-hour talk and distilling it into 15 minutes, so bear with me. I might jump from thing to thing. But one of the things, that I find hard to navigate is, how do you find money? Like, where do you look? So the first place I'm just going to start is, like, where do you look for funding opportunities here in Canada? I know there's some people all over the world watching, possibly in the U.S. I mean, the U.S. has a ton of funding opportunities, possibly in other countries as well. The U.K. does as well. I'm going to speak specifically to Canada. But if you're an artist here in Canada, you can pursue arts funding at 3 levels of government: federal, Canada Council for the Arts; provincial, if you're here in Ontario, Ontario Arts Council; if you're in another province, they have provincial bodies; and then municipal. There are city-based funding opportunities, Toronto Arts Council. There's so many things out there. And then that's only talking about the government side. There's also foundations. There's private foundations like the Metcalf Foundation, the Laidlaw Foundation. Like, you name it. If you start Googling this, you will find a lot of stuff. So what I did is I joined 1 million newsletters of where they announce funding opportunities, Outreach, Ontario Trillium Foundation, Ontario Nonprofit Network. Like, I literally Googled everything and joined every newsletter and would have every list of funder that I could apply for. Then I would create another list, an Excel file, with which ones that I felt Unity was eligible for at the time. And we would, don't spend your time battling someone who, you're not, as a b-boy, I'm not going to battle a pauper. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So I'm not going to go after certain funding applications I don't fit in the boxes for. So if you go through 100 grants, spend half a day doing that, and you narrow it down to 5 grants that you actually think you might fit for, then you call 5 grant officers. I don't know why they're called grant officers. That's like a terrible word, like officer, but it is what it is. Maybe we got to change the term to grant partners or grant advocates. I advocate for them to change their names because I think it's not the right word, but it's one that sometimes is used. Either way, that was a side tangent. But you call the grant advocates, the grant partners, the people behind the desks who are administrating these grants and say, I have this idea. I want to use hip hop as an opportunity to work with young people in schools. Who should I talk to? How can I approach this? What's the best way to do that? Some people will advocate for you. Some people will give you the answers. I'd say 90% of them will give you the answers. The big thing is just picking up the phone and making that phone call. Some once in a while, it's hard to get that meeting, I know. So find a way to get that meeting. If I've spoken to someone and I've received funding from them, I'd be willing to share a contact with you. So anyone who's gotten funding, you can actually look. It's usually public data that says who's been funded. Look at who's been funded. Oh, I know that person. I'm going to call them and ask if they can make an introduction. 9 out of 10 times, the person who's been funded wants, there's enough money out there for all of us to sort of do this work. And again, the point of this is to have more people apply, have more people go out there. And the other thing is, oh, I got denied once, I'm never going to go again. No, that is the biggest think about a battle. Do you go into a battle the first time you go and you don't qualify and then you never enter a battle again? If you do, you're never going to win, right? So it's the same with grants. I look at it like a battle. I'm like, cool. That schlub over there can get some money. I can get some money too. I can make this happen, So I battle the other people who are putting in funding proposals. And the first time I don't win, but I go to the grant officer, the grant advocate, whatever, and I receive feedback. And I take that feedback and I put it into the next grant and I say, here's the grant with all the feedback you told me to put into that proposal. What do you think? Now, these are usually reviewed by third, community decision members, but still, if the grant officer understands your project and proposal, then they're going to advocate for you because they know that it's not going to get thrown out based on, I don't know, maybe a misunderstanding at the decision-making table, because that grant officer, you've already spoken to them and they know you. They know what your proposal is about. And someone might say, oh, we're throwing it away because it doesn't meet this, we're not allowed to fund competitions. It's actually, no, I spoke to them and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, so they can advocate for you at that table. If you've never spoken to them, your proposal goes in the garbage. So speak to the grant officers, speak to funders, and this applies also for sponsorships. If you're trying to get in and get money from a corporation to support a breaking event or support a community project you're doing, same thing. Get a warm introduction. How do you get a warm introduction? Go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook. There's a lot of B-boys and B-girls out there, dancers who work in professional jobs at RBC and Manulife and all these places, and see who works in one of these companies and get them to look into the staff directory and contact the sponsorship person, because everyone has access to the staff directory, and make an introduction for you. It goes a long way versus you LinkedIn searching that person's name and then just randomly messaging them. They may not reply, but if someone who works there sets up a meeting, then all of a sudden you got in the door. So it's about getting creative, right? Same as breaking. How do I get creative to raise money? And I know that sounds kind of that could sound kind of whack, but it's kind of dope when it starts working, and it does work. And I'm, again, happy to share more of these tactics and ways that we did it, but it's get creative, be persistent, I think that's another thing is if you get a no once, same as the battle, you don't just walk off the stage and You know, you don't battle the judge. I mean, like in some case, for people who battle judges, by all means, that's your own problem. But like, you're not getting better results by battling the judge. It's the same as the funder. I don't go back to the funder and say, "Oh, what the heck, man?" Da, 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 da. It's like, no. I say, "Can you give me feedback? Because I want to do better next time." And I take that feedback and I do better next time. And I practice harder for the next time I'm in that pitch. It's the same thing. And I actually, in my new book that some folks will be getting as a result of like making a donation to Stella's Place, I think that was the way that that Jeff set this up. I have tons of sort of tactics that we use to raise money, and it's also about not lying, like being real. You know, like funders can smell if you're like not being honest with them. You know, like be yourself, be sincere, be real. At the end of the day, like if you lie to someone and you know promise something that you can't actually do, people are gonna find out. You know, like your reputation precedes you. Like I think the most powerful thing with Unity over 5 years, over 10 years, is when we got a grant, we did a really good job. Like today, you know, I'm sure that the funders are going to be happy with this because like UBL did a really good job, you know what I mean? And like this is evidence to put in funding proposals for larger grants down the road and continued funding. And this is exactly what it is. You're not going and spending that on like a lawnmower or something, you know, like you're going out there and you're doing that in an authentic and honest way. And that creates a snowball in which more opportunities will come. I'll give you an example. We were involved with a private foundation in Toronto, and we offered to do a professional development training session for their staff. We did the professional development training session for their staff. We taught them how to break and like did a bit of spoken word. Everyone's laughing, you know, getting to know each other. 2 months later, we got a check in the mail for $18,000. And I was like, what the heck? This is a mistake. You know, I was about to deposit it, but I had to call them and say, you made a mistake. Someone sent us a check for something we didn't apply for. I asked around the office, no one had applied for this money. What I found out was, because we had left a positive impression on them, and they understood the impact of the work that we did through the presentation that we had made, and built an authentic relationship, and engaged their employees, they sent us a check from a donor. It's called a donor advised fund, where someone was looking to make a donation to a good cause, and they recommended our name. The staff recommended our name. So that $18,000 was like, cool. And then we ended up turning that into a $65,000 gift for 3 years, and then we renewed it 2 times. So this stuff isn't like small when you're talking about the numbers here, like, but it boils down to building trusting relationships where you're being real and you're delivering the product that you actually promise. In fact, we would always under-promise and over-deliver, because at the end of the day, it's much easier to do that than it is to like over-deliver or over-promise, and then you're always going to miss the mark. If you say there's going to be 100,000 people and 1 million viewers, like, if you know you can get that, absolutely do it, but like, you want to knock it out of the park so that they give you more money next time. The way we looked at it, if we could get $1,000 from someone, then we prove it to them like someone that they give $100,000 to. Like, we do the best job on that $1,000, and then next year we ask for 20. Does that make sense? Like, you got to prove yourself. The same as breaking. You got to prove yourself. Like, you can't just assume you're going to earn credibility because you like dress nice or like, you know, you talk a lot. You got to like win battles. It's the same thing. Like, you can't, it's harder to talk until you've won the battle. So once you win, you use that credibility to get the next one and to get the next one and to get the next one. So these are all things that I talk about, you know, and I'm happy to support anyone in the community who's down to just try, because I think that's the sort of way that we get this done is, you know, I call it building the plane while flying it in my new book, like making stuff up as you go along. And B-boys and B-girls are like the most creative in terms of like creating something out of nothing, you know, like as we do in hip hop, we just try. We're like, oh shoot, that didn't work. So I got to figure out a different way to do that. And funding is the same thing. Also, if you're, you know, finding out that you're not eligible for certain grants or funding opportunities, partner with a charity. Find a charity that works with young people or the elderly or whoever you want to be serving through your work, through your workshops, through your art. Maybe you want to perform for the elderly during this time of in the pandemic. You know, whatever it is. Whatever it is, find the charity that does that, partner with them, and then go after the big bank grant or whatever. It doesn't mean because you're not registered as a charity that you can't go for that money. You just have to find the right partnerships. Or if you're down to register a charity, it's a pain. I'm not gonna lie. It's not fun to have a volunteer board that can technically hire and fire you. But if you can manage that, and you can similarly the way you manage funders in an authentic and real way, build a charity. Like we need more registered charitable organizations run by people in the hip hop community. Like you just can't access the big money without having that status. Now it comes with a lot of a little bit of administration that's manageable. And again, if anyone wants to sort of go down that path, hit me up, check out the book, and like I'd be happy to support you with that journey because we need more breaking community folks who are doing the good work, getting the money, because there's a lot of people getting the funding. I won't say, whatever, just the idea that we need more breaking people in hip-hop community people doing the work, getting that money, because they don't even know that you all exist. And that's the funny thing. I've sat around these decision-making tables, and like they're like, oh, well, we have all these hip-hop applications. I'm like, show me who applied. And I look at these, and it's cool. Like some people are starting to apply, and that's good. But there's a huge wave of people who are not just putting the application in. And it literally takes half a day. Like I know I'm a terrible writer and I say I wrote a book, but I didn't. Like I wrote the book for real, and I had an editor, you know what I'm saying? Like if you have a friend who writes well, sit there and speak and pay your friend $50 to help you write it down, like whatever you gotta do, like make it happen, because it will be worth $10,000. It will be worth 5,000 so that you can actually pursue a project that you want to do. I'm not saying money, is everything. It's a piece of having something come to reality, but it helps, and like if you get 2 or 3 grants, maybe you can quit your job, your part-time job or your full-time job so you can focus more on this, and then that momentum grows even more. And then you can even invest money in people who are writing grants to continue down that path. You can see how that becomes exponential. Also, as your reputation, it's like a big snowball, and it's rolling down a hill and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So similarly to Unity, we didn't think it was going to be big. We didn't even want it to be big, to be honest. The bigger it got, the harder it became to navigate some of those complex relationships. But we did just put one proposal out at a time, get feedback, get funding, do projects. You can flag me down if I'm going too long. Just say, like, again, this was like a 1-hour talk, so I'm trying to cut it down to 15 minutes, but I just talk too much. So yeah, just throw something at me. But another thing is just network building, I said connectors, like, folks who have gotten funding before. Ask people who have gotten funding before to support you on that journey. Go through LinkedIn. Go through, just literally Google who the funder is. And they usually have a phone number on these Arts Council websites. Just call them, and be real with them. Like, I've never done this before, and I could really use your help. If they, like 9 out of 10, again, will support you in that way. The other thing is ask questions. When you go to the funding tables, I have a list of questions that I ask folks, like, what is your favorite project that you fund? Why is that your favorite project? What's the average gift size of the first grant that you apply for? How can I build a meaningful relationship with you in a way that, is sort of, appropriate, and also how do you want to stay in touch with the work that we do? Maybe a funder can come to an event like this. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they just want to get an update from an email. But I will always be persistent. I'd always invite them to events. We even created events called Celebrating Supporters, where we'd invite all of our funders and their kids just to like come for a day and celebrate them. We would, try to get things donated. So those events ended up costing, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. But in the end, when, the funder from the big bank and his kid is looking up to him like, Dad, you're so cool. Like, you fund this hip hop thing. It's really awesome. Do you think that guy's not going to fund that again next time? He's personally connected to it now because his kids think he's cool because he does this. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that in like that's amazing. If like the hip hop community can like bring families together who have no idea about our culture, but also then bring resources into this community, then why not do that? Like, why is that a bad thing? You know, I could see people pushing back and saying, oh, well, you know, that's not real hip hop or this or that. But like, Unity employs like 15 people full time, many who are practitioners in the community who are like some of the best in the country right now, you know, like Boob Jester and Andel and like Clinton and like Fade was working there at one point. So there's so many people who had full-time jobs at this organization who are practicing artists, you know what I mean? So you can do it too. That's all I'm saying is like it starts with that one grant, but it goes further than that. And I'm not saying that like grants are the way to support our community because it's not the only way. But if that's enough you need to quit your job to then focus on this stuff, maybe it's that runway to sort of get you off the ground so that you can create more sustainable revenue streams, charge for tickets, you know, like get that earned revenue too. I'm not saying don't do that. Like definitely have multiple sources because if you don't get the grant, you're kind of in trouble, right? So we had an equal split between corporate funding, government funding, earned revenue, and private foundations. And that's how you create sustainability because if there's a pandemic and the corporate America or corporate Canada can't support you, you can go to your donors and say, we need your support. You know, you can charge and sell some sweaters or something and, you know, earn some revenue. Like, you got to be, like, resourceful, you know? Like, there's resources and then there's resourcefulness. And as B-boys and B-girls, like, we're the most resourceful, you know, artists, I believe, in a lot of the art forms that are out there. So lean into that resourcefulness and say, how can I do this the B-boy way, the B-girl way, the creative way? Find a way to do it, make it happen. And then use like this amazing thing that's been produced to get that next funding. You know what I'm saying? Like leverage, you know, you have a reputation. Don't be shy to talk about the amazing things that you do. So I could go on for an hour. I'm not going to do that. If you want more of this information, feel free to check out the book. But again, shout out to UBL, shout out to Afternoon, DJs, everyone holding it down today. Respect. Thanks for having me out.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, right about now, we're going to call to the stage our panelists so we can get going with the next section. So I do believe City's in the house. Yes, I also do believe Drops is in the house. Cross One, Keen. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, just sit tight. We're getting our guests on stage and online. Bear with us for a couple of seconds. Rhythm is there. Cross One is there. Yes. Yes, 1 2 1 2 1 2. So we're going to get it started. We got a couple of questions that we're going to ask around. Sometimes it'll be directed at someone specifically, but feel free to jump in if you do feel that you have something to add. So without any further ado, I guess I'll get started, just waiting for Pieces to get up. Yeah, he had to catch his breath. All right. So the first question, just a bit directed to everyone, so feel free to let me know. For those people online, you can maybe raise your hand if you want to answer, because it's not the same as interacting in real life. So when we're talking about growth and sustainability, the question is, growth and sustainability can foreseeably leave behind important cultural traditions along the way. And I think that's something that a lot of hip-hop heads, especially b-boys, think about when they're thinking about going professional within the art form. So how do you view the importance of staying invested, as Rhythm put it, in others and essentially investment in the culture? Does anyone? Go for it, Rhythm.
Yeah,
doing. Yeah, I feel like that's the first thing that comes to mind right now. Like, I teach a lot of classes. I actually have my foot in the door. I got a job teaching at a university, like a breaking class, and that's been like one of the main focuses of the class is just creating an environment where the students get to practice with each other, trying to get them basically just like how we would learn with each other, you know, um, to practice together, to learn the history, and just kind of keep it simple.
Sounds good, man. Anyone else has something to add or that they would like to share on that point? Just make sure it's turned on so they can hear you online and through the
Check,
interweb.
check.
Yes, yes.
All right. One of the things I think around sustainability is first you got to start from yourself in order to sustain yourself, in order to sustain the work that you got to do. But the goal isn't to sustain; it's to thrive, right, and to help others thrive. So it's really being grounded at that first point, like Beats mentioned, around having that first step, so you know you can make more steps, and really, centering your goals to thrive, not just to tread water,
Dope, dope, dope. Anyone else? Yeah, go for it.
I didn't hear the question in the beginning.
Oh.
I'm guessing it's about sustainability.
Yes, the question was, how do you view the importance of staying invested, as Rhythm put it, in others and essentially investment in the culture?
I think a lot of like for not, I won't say hip hop, but more breaking. I think a lot of people in breaking they look for the investment and the money coming. I want to say talk about money, but with money coming from inside breaking, coming into breaking, because it's not going to happen. Like it has to come from the outside in, right? So us as a culture have to kind of invest in getting people from outside the culture into our culture. So I think we just need more of that, and like sustainability for yourself first before you could try to sustain others and people around you, right? So I mean, like what was mentioned before, you have to sustain yourself and bring it all in,
That's an absolute fact. I think a lot of people have dreams of pretty much like go straight up like breaking competition and everything. But I think the smartest thing to do is like set yourself up financially, whether it's like living at home, whether it's like getting a job, whatever. And that leaves a lot of pressure off for you, so you can do what you would like to do, and there's not too many other factors that are gonna like influence your decisions.
Dope, dope, dope. I think you had something you wanted to add, and then we can move on to City.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, just try to speak a little louder.
yeah. I think like the economic part is going to be important, and of course, like key. But something that I try to always remember myself. I think like when you create a new space, there's like a cycle. So it's a new thing. Everyone's excited about it. Everyone's new. After 1 year, after 2 years, we all know each other and we all friends. So it's like you need to remind yourself to restart that cycle so you don't suddenly find yourself gatekeeping that own space you created. You gotta make sure you're constantly reaching out to new people, in a younger generation or like groups that might not be part of that initial movement, And so that's something like I'm always thinking, like you gotta stay relevant and you gotta still make sure you're not just make it about yourself, not that being you, but being that original group. And you gotta keep on passing it on. I mean, like looking at each other and just checking on you all the time, just making sure you're passing on the movement to other people, especially from the outside, and building that empathy so it doesn't become like an inside thing.
Dope, dope. City?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think also, sustaining the culture is obviously very important, but the culture is also evolving. When it comes down to even teaching, like holding breaking classes, for example, this is something relatively new, maybe in the last 10 years. And I think, some people could do a good job of really bridging the gap between, the dance scene and the classroom, or others maybe can't. So I think it's all of our jobs to really, bring that essence in and just, try to, like I said, bridge that gap. And I think it's possible in all platforms, whether we're teaching, whether we're performing. Even if you're animating a kid's birthday party, you could bring a real essence and teach, make it a teaching thing versus just selling out and changing the art form to adapt to the mainstream. It's really about providing it and putting it. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of like a pizza. If it's a good pizza, it doesn't matter what the packaging is. It's what's inside. So yeah.
That's dope. That's dope. And you're actually touching on something. I don't know if you wanted to add something, Pieces? Okay. You're actually touching on something that's the next question that I had for everyone is knowing how making something professional and accessible often means either bleaching or whitewashing sometimes a culture. How can people make sure that they appreciate the culture rather than appropriate?
I think for me, I have a very split opinion on this, and I think, I have everyone has a different background, and I have a lot of background from other types. And one thing that I know is, there's different markets. There is a market of basically the true school b-boys, the ones that are really deep in the culture, that love the culture, and will defend their art to its full capacity. And there's others that kind of want to just do it because it's kind of funny. It doesn't, there's really different levels. And I think the way to together is to make sure that it's the whole issue, sell out market, there is a way to add your genuine essence of breaking in without letting it sell. If someone does people outside of breaking are more attracted to it, understand. But if you throw some crazy sick hook, right? If you're not, if it's like you're not going to stick, and that's the biggest problem. And I think the more that we show our impact in the world, both when it comes to creating more in a time division, the more people will understand it, and the gap will close. I remember 5, 6 years ago, we were in person, and the more that they're calling, it's like now you don't see people's apartment. If you post a sick photo, you post TikTok, and people are feeling like it's a time. I think that's
Hype, hype. Anyone else?
I have a thought on.
I have a short answer. Make it fun. Yeah. Make it fun. Open creativity. Don't like. People like to kind of chastise yourself all the time. Be like. You're not supposed to do it this way. It's an open thing. It's open creativity. There's more ways to do it all. There's not just one way. We're talking about that one aspect of the culture. Take it on stage, take it forward. There's so many aspects to it.
Dope. I think Pieces had something you wanted to share?
Word, yeah. And similarly, it's really cool to hear all the perspectives for sure. I think at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? Whether you're working in a corporate job or you're working in a bank or you work for the government or you're a b-boy or b-girl or an MC, we're all human beings. So I think what I look at in these situations is what are the goals of both parties? And how do I not sacrifice my integrity in any way while understanding what your goals are in your role too, because there's constraints to a corporate role that may be providing a sponsorship, and say, okay, I see why you're telling me to do this, because that's within your goal and your framework of how you make decisions. But let's zoom out and what is your actual goal? What are you trying to achieve? Is it, making your company look great in front of potential customers? Because if that's your big goal, then we don't have to do it that way. And I think that's the bigger conversation, is when we can all zoom out and say, what is my goal as an individual? What is your goal? And the constraints to hold each of our positions. And in that context, we could probably come up with better ideas, but we just hear the idea and we're like, no, breaking, we can't do that. Or, the corporate side might be like, no, we have to protect our brand or whatever. And I think it's when we can all zoom out and have conversations where I'm not challenging you or disagreeing with you. I'm just creating a space where we can collectively be creative around coming up with better ideas, because that idea might suck, straight up, but not saying that, obviously,
Dope. Anyone else? Yes, Jumps?
Well, one thing to recognize is what is professional. It means getting paid for doing the work in that industry, which will be dance for us. So when we have to get over it in hip hop, this like sellout mentality, because what we're really thinking about is wellness, and we all have to eat. You know, let's be well. Like we have to make money. So in order to do that, we have to be professional. There's a stigma around that word, but in reality, that word is used in industries for access to professional unions and associations, resources, memberships that provide grant opportunities. So there's a weird stigma around professionalism, but we do have to own that, and own that aggressively at some tables where resources are not flowing to the hip hop community, but should be available and should be recognized as a professional community, rather than self-identifying as sellouts.
Yeah, you can go then. City, you can go first. Oh, you can.
I think like when we talk about like whitewashing, like the concept is like someone is taking away the main idea, keeping the structure for their own benefit. And that happens a lot when like big institutions give you money. And I think, you know, as creators, emerging artists, we're sometimes like in such a big need to get that support to be able to sustain your craft, because that's what you love, that's what you want to do. And sometimes, like, as someone mentioned before, like we don't think of getting that part-time gig that's gonna pay the bills, you know, for the next 3-6 months until you get the cash flow to build on your own project. And we're like so insecure that we give away too much. And I think you gotta know your worth. You gotta know your worth, and you gotta like stand your ground in a positive way. And the best way of doing that is like owning your story, owning your storytelling, and be able to like change the conversation and show them how, hey, there's a reason why you want to talk to me, and listening to me is gonna benefit you. And if you don't get it, maybe you need to find someone else. But you gotta own your ground, and don't let them just like, don't let yourself be used by someone who just wants to profit from your community. So if you're gonna engage in starting things in your community, it's also your responsibility to protect that story and make sure like they're properly represented.
Dope City?
Yeah, I just want to touch on what Drop said. Like, I was just talking the other day, I can't remember with who, but I was saying, like, I don't remember the last time I saw, like, a dope b-boy or break performance, you know, whether it be on the stage or, you know, on the street, whatever it is. Like, it's been such a long time, and I feel like because there's such a stigma behind, you know, breaking and choreography or performance, like it just, I think it probably stemmed from the mid-2000s. There was a lot of commandos, choreography happening in battles. And, you know, at first it was dope because it was showing the strength of your crew and the chemistry you had as a team. And then people started to maybe abuse it, overuse it, and that's why they were winning battles. So I think, you know, when we're talking about crew battles, I think routines need to start coming back, but in a way that respects the dance and is not used as a crutch. And I feel like if we can do that, it will bring back not only crew culture, but it will also allow a window for, you know, people to look at, you know, performing and working with your crew in a creative way that way, in a different way. And I think that we're our own worst enemies as b-boys and b-girls and anywhere in hip-hop, that as soon as we start to do anything that's really not like what it was, you know, back in the 70s in the Bronx, it's like, you know, not really being true to the culture and everything. And I think we need to really like expand out and realize that the culture is expanding. And, you know, as long as we can stay true to the, you know, the foundation and the intent of what breaking was supposed to be, I think that, you know, the sky's the limit, you know. And, you know, you could see early footage of crews like Rocksteady Crew and, you know, New York City Breakers doing performances like, you know, on the David Letterman show and, you know, for the opening for the Olympics and all that stuff. And, you know, do I look at that as selling out? No, I don't. I look at that as showing their art form on a platform that's basically a learning lesson for everyone to see. And I think as long as what you're presenting in any platform, whether, like I said before, even if it's at a child's birthday party, use that platform as a teaching tool and display that real essence. Don't change to what you're doing, because you're at a birthday party or you're on a stage, but just provide that. And to me, that's not, it's never going to be selling out. So that's, yeah.
Really interesting. I think there's, oh, yeah, go for it, Rhythm.
Trying just to do a couple different things in our community, like throwing just small events, just little raw events that give a sense of people coming together. I remember when I first started dancing, that was really big, like in Mass and Rhode Island. For me to feel like I had a place, there wasn't really as many top 16 battles. There were more just straight battles, where maybe there weren't enough people to make a top 16, but that meant that you actually got feedback from the judges on each of those rounds, and you actually had to battle the person in front of you versus a showcase. And that practice over and over made me feel more connected to everybody. Whereas nowadays, sometimes I feel more like if there's events and there's just a top 16, you don't make it, then over time people feel like they're not part of it in a certain way that I remember feeling was important. So like that's one thing that I want to say is like having just small events that help people have that community together. I feel like it adds a lot to just the rawness and the vibe of just communication together, just feeling like we're connected in this other sense. Um, and yeah, I don't want to go on too long or go in circles. Sometimes I'll do that, but but just I'll leave it there for now. You made me think about that, so.
No, no, it's all good, and it actually can segue to another question that I had actually for everyone. Basically, everyone who feels they're involved with this would be, what are the key elements in building a local community? Because like you were saying, that format was able to help people actually grow, and it was more of a focus on your local community. So what are the key elements in building a local community, and what are some of the similarities with some of the larger, globally influenced communities? So I think it's something that a lot of people could expand and share on. What are the key elements in building a local community, and what are some of the similarities with some of the larger, globally influenced communities? I feel like it's Jeopardy and everyone's just waiting to...
Na, 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 na.
Exactly.
I could answer that one. I mean, with me and my event, I mean, I wasn't really. I guess I was focused more on my local community. So just trying to keep it frequent, trying to do things, you know, like at least once every 3 months, several times a year, and just keeping it up. The event got and bigger, so you know the amount of energy we had to put into each event started getting longer and longer. So now it's like once a year. But you know, for smaller events, I think the frequency and just keep on doing it. Like the more you do it, and like I said, going back to the last question and keeping it fun, the community grows and just keeping the conversation going every day from, you know, from the event to online to social media, then back to the event, and just kind of keeping that cycle going. It makes its way, it ripples around the world. Like, you know what I mean? When you keep it fun and keep it consistent and you do good, it attracts more people. And I think it just overflows and more people from, you know, out of town come and it grows from there, you know?
Dope, dope. Anyone else wants to expand on that?
I mean, I'm not really a promoter, but I mean, I'll give my 2 cents. I think what's very important is to be able to like kill your event locally, because at the very core it has to be a strong event. It has to have a lot of word of mouth. And as Cross said, once word of mouth spreads, everyone is kind of curious about it, and then you get a few key people in there, and then they kill it, and maybe there's the footage that comes out there in the world, and it's something that you don't build overnight. It's something that you have to just keep doing it, and just like a business, and eventually it will come forward, you know?
Dope, dope, dope. I know you wanted to add it on point.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the key things when we were doing loop sessions was like looking at what was going on in the city and seeing how we could like build something, create a new space, and we're not just trying to sneak in and start competing with someone else who was already doing their own thing. Like you don't want to overlap who's like your brother and build it with you. And following that, it's like you want to create something where people want to belong to. And you gotta be really aware of what you are offering, like those participants, that community. For example, in the case of loop sessions, it's a very restricted music production session. Everyone's using the same sample, and there's like specific format. So everyone who's going there is kind of like accepting that format, and those restrictions level everyone's expertise. So what happens? That allows for a lot of people who are beginners to step in and be much more comfortable with everyone else around them. Because like we're all dealing with the same restrictions, and there's a random factor in that and the result of your work during that session that maybe someone who started like producing 6 months ago and like participates and drops an amazing beat, and then someone who has been producing for years like, man, I don't know what happened today, you know, it was not good. And like it just doesn't become about winning, and we are all like sharing that experience together. And in music and hip hop, where you have so many beat battles, so many competitions, and people participating, just trying to validate themselves in a way to gain recognition. So like, yo, I'm gonna go here, like kill it. And I think that's also like part of hip hop, that competition in a healthy way. But we created a space where people can just go there and share, and it's not about that. So we removed that desire for just like proving yourself and winning, for like just like going there and participating. And we had producers who were like much older come and be like, yo, thanks so much for this. Because like I thought my time was done. Like I didn't know I could hang out with people on a Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. just make beats. This is great. Like now I can go have dinner with my family, and that's sweet, and I can still be part of this. So it was definitely a new spot, and a lot of people from different like groups and ages it was like a common denominator where they all get together and share it. And it's just not like, I was just like young dudes talking about hip hop, you know.
Did
you want to share?
Super quick point to add is just put in the work, you know, like don't have plans for world domination and try, like you're not going to be freestyle session in your first year or your first 20 years. Like, you know, you may never be, like, don't try to strive to be someone else, honestly. At the end of the day, like, be yourself and put out quality stuff. And then things will, you know, resources and people will be attracted to the realness. And if you're just doing it to profit and to like sort of achieve some goal that doesn't make any sense, like it's not going to work. And the other thing I'll say is just be willing to learn, because like if you do something and it attracts this different energy that you didn't expect, maybe you want to bring that in next time. Like maybe the media comes out, or maybe some international people start getting attention towards it. But if it doesn't, just keep it local. Not everything needs to grow. Like everyone wants to grow everything, and like not everything needs to be scaled. That's another thing. I think we're in this world, this capitalistic world, where we think everything needs to be international or everything needs to be national. Like just do it well in your own community before you even consider taking it anywhere else. That's a starting point. Sorry, I just felt like the need to say that.
No, it's all good. Once again, it's an open conversation. It's not like one person can talk more than the other. It's open. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, it's important to recognize, you know, what community we're really even talking about, and what you're responsible for to that community you're building. Because, you know, we put so much energy into things, and how many times have you seen someone build something beautiful that just, boom, disappears? And you see a young person who had a mentor really now has lost that outlet, lost that relationship. So it's very important to be mindful of how you build energy and expectation in community you're building and working with. And also manage your own expectations around, really, are we going to be able to save hip-hop from anything? I don't know. Hopefully hip-hop will save us, more like. So there's just be important when you're building these communities that we do have, you know, very, very specific responsibilities that we have to be aware with when bringing people together in space, bring people in the knowledge you're sharing about hip hop. You have to educate yourself before you're even able to share appropriately. So we have to sort of be mindful of building communities and doing it respectfully.
You actually bring up something very interesting when you were talking about events that are there and you see them grow or you see them just striving and then all of a sudden, poof. And that's a question actually I had for Cross One. Freestyle Session has been a tradition for over 20 years. What do you credit that longevity to?
Me being crazy, nice. Nah, nah. You know, I think amongst before any
you're
of
cutting a
this,
little
like
bit.
foundation, as far I come from, at least the so going before what I even did with my event. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Okay, so before I even did my events, we had a really solid foundation as far as practices and some a space for b-boys and b-girls to come train and practice their craft on the weekly. You know what I mean? Like pretty much it was a boys and girls club. It wasn't even specifically for breaking. Actually, it was more just a teen night and just a safe space for kids to do their thing. And a lot of b-boys and b-girls just gravitated towards that area. We had our own little room to practice at. And it was consistent for years. It kind of laid the foundations for like B-Boy Summit that was predated Freestyle Session, and people from around the world would come visit whenever the big events were in town, and there was always a go-to spot. And then carrying that on, when I started doing Freestyle Session, I had my store called the Armory, so it was always a space for people to come to and be able to come and vibe out and talk, and just come through. But yeah, just for me, I just do what I do. Like it's not like something that I just like. Even talking about how we can sustain communities and do this and that going into the future. Like I'm looking at like what were we doing before, and I'm just kind of like putting the pieces of the puzzle. Like okay, we did that, we did this, and this is what happened, and a lot of you guys are articulating it way better than I am. But like I've lived it and like we've done it and yeah, like, for me now, I feel like to continue, 21, 22, this is the 23rd year of Freestyle Session. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it, but, we are still connected to the community. Like, I feel like we could start back next year and it won't skip a beat, you know what I mean? But just being present is probably the biggest thing I could say is being in the community. Like I see a lot of people that just kind of dip out, and breaking in hip hop has its way of just welcoming people back no matter what. You can leave for 10 years, come back in, and everybody's like, yo, what up? So it's cool. But as far as building a brand, building a successful event, you have to keep it consistent and you have to be present.
Interesting. Now, speaking of consistent...
That's pretty much the gist of it, really. Yeah.
Damn, yeah.
Speaking of consistency, speaking of being connected and being present, I actually have a question for Keen. In what ways do you think that stands can help encourage more collaboration and community involvement?
I think what stands, it's not like I think there's a huge...
Yeah, we hear you. Oh, do you hear us?
Wait, what's going on?
You just bugged out.
We hear you.
Keen, if you hear us.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. We hear you.
Wait, sorry.
He's probably playing a video game at the same time.
No. I had a YouTube video just autoplay for a second, and I got super confused. I thought someone else was like speaking. Anyways, that's on me. So your question was like, how can stance be more communicative? I think,
or actually, not how stance can be more communicative, but how can stance encourage more collaboration and community involvement?
I think first and foremost, I think stance, like everyone sees us as this like hidden corporate company or something that just puts out a shit ton of like just breaking related and dance related content, but it's really just a collective of a bunch of friends that see breaking in a different way. And we want to make sure that we put out media that the breaking scene likes, that we stay true, but at the same time, we're able to reach and extend and inspire other people that are not in the breaking scene to be curious and to come in, because that's the only way. You know, if it's just us that really like breaking, the next generation is going to die off. So for us, our responsibility is to, you know, inspire and keep true to the scene. And I think the best way to be more collaborative is actually just, you know, reach out to us for some ideas, you know, like we can only see so many things on so many different lenses, and there are many things that we miss. For example, like, you know, for example, you guys know early in the spring with Black Lives Matter, we were actually spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to carve this message correctly. Because, you know, as an entity, you know, we're not gonna, you know, compared to a person, you just say how your heart feels. But as an entity, we have to like come correct. So we spent a few days and people were a little bit, you know, a little bit mad at us because we didn't like say things right away. But we want to make sure like we come correct. And that's the most important thing, because we get messages and we get like angles from many different areas. So I think the best thing to do is reach out. You know, we're not this crazy group that's gonna like overtake all of media on breaking. You know, we're just a group of people, and we only are able to see so much. You know.
Is there something you wanted to add, or?
Yeah, I'm like, when it comes to collaboration, I find that a key thing is like, first think about like what value can you add to that second party you're reaching out. And that's how we try to reach out to other organizations when we are looking for a venue. And you know, what are we bringing to the table? And it really makes a big impact to us when someone reaches out to us with that mentality, like, hey guys, like, I like what you're doing, this is what we do, if you ever need this, let us know. It's a totally different vibe from when someone just like reach out to you, like asking for something right away. So I think you're always gotta be aware, like, where can you add value and like add something to the table.
Yes, I think one thing that, you know, most of the breaking scene still needs to learn a lot is like the art of like selling a pitch. You know, a lot of folks like they'll message us saying like, hey, let's shoot. It's like we have so much things to shoot. Like we need to prioritize. You know, like there's only so many hands and so many cameras and so much projects we can handle at the same time. So, you know, reach us out with some ideas. Like give us some angles that we can work with. You know, if there's like if there's an issue at hand that you guys really feel about, maybe we can figure out how to like bring it out there to life and bring the message out there, you know, for the better.
Definitely interesting. Something that I want to touch on, and I guess a lot of people are going to be advocates for that, is having more than just one skill. Meaning that you don't just do what you do, there's other assets that you can bring to the table. And for as much as this symposium includes those that can offer a multitude of resources to the community building, how important do you feel is the development of versatility of secondary or third skill? So how important do you think it is to have more than just one skill in your bag when it comes to moving forward?
It's absolutely vital. If you think about it, as professional b-boy career, if you only did competitions, how much money would you make in a year compared to an annual salary? You'd have to kill it. But then you have to educate your community, and sort of you can teach. You get a whole host of opportunities. But within those requires administrative capacities, marketing necessities. I myself work as a marketing communications manager at Dancer Transition Resource Center. We're a charity that actually supplies funding, grants, and career counseling services to professional dancers. So we always work with dancers who carve 1,000 different paths. Where one becomes a chocolatier, another becomes a neurobiologist. Like, it's incredible how many different paths dancers take. And, you know, building new skill sets, you know, you should always try and do it. Whether they apply to your dance work or not, you know, some training in budgeting is going to help everything in life. You know, like, there's always things that we can level up on, and I think we always have to be a student. We can't just rely, especially not in b-boying, just rely on one skill set.
I I think it's something very interesting that you point out that what would the annual salary be for a b-boy if he only battled? And it's something interesting that like actually now b-boys are starting to open up to learning other street dance styles in order to be a little bit more viable when it comes to dance performances. You know, a lot of times it's something that we've seen where b-boys are being taken by circus companies or performance companies, and they're like, oh, okay, we got a spot for you for 10 minutes, you're going to do a head spin, you know? But now it's more, no, bring what you have and then bring those other skill sets so you can do more than just be the cherry on top, but you can actually be a part of the whole. That's just a small example. Did anyone else want to add on this? Yeah, you can go for it.
I'm talking a lot, so.
No, it's all good, man. As long as information is being shared, then I think that's why people are logging in, to be able to have access to what you guys have to say.
There's like two things. One of like, that is like, if we're talking about like staying consistent with your event and with your community, and like building step by step, and you gotta understand that your role as a part of that team or leader, or however, whatever your role is gonna change while with that growth. So one thing is when you're doing your small event, you're just hosting your event with mainly friends, most probably. When you apply for a grant, that's a different role. When you're getting more money, when you're getting private sponsorship, that's a different role. And so you gotta be aware of which role and where your true value is. So you understand and you're able to build a team that you need and to complement your skills. And then one thing that on like a personal level, kind of like following what you said, I think it's key to understand like, I'm a music producer, right? So when I first moved to Canada, like less than 2 years ago, I hardly knew anyone. And now I find myself doing consulting for like nonprofits and running music entrepreneurship programs. Like that's not even close to what I was doing back home. Like not even close. Like, but I found out like someone reached out to me one day and said, "Yo, like, bro, I think like you will kill this. Like, I'll get you in this project." It started small and it kept growing, and I realized you gotta understand like what it takes like as an like emotional IQ to do what you do. And as a music producer, I'm not an artist, so what am I doing? Like I'm like pretty much seeing what other people do, seeing what that core idea is, and seeing like, hey, if we change that, or if we will build something around that, what could that be? What's the potential? And like that mentality really applied to this consulting work I'm doing. So it's like, hey, we need this. How do we do this? And it's just like that ability in my case for like being able to like break down points and really like the technical part of developing the processes to develop like an idea. That was my process in music production. Dude, I have these songs. Like, okay, hold on, what's the structure? You know, like, okay, how you want to sound like? Let's have like 5 different references. It's the same process, like on a like emotional like level. To me, it's the same. It's exactly the same thing. You're helping someone else develop their idea, and if you understand what your craft is and how it would apply in different contexts, then you understand how you can make a sustainable living in different industries. And you're not just locked on what everyone else in your industry is doing.
With this symposium and you guys on stage and the guys virtually, this is essentially our attempt at an open call to everyone watching to get more involved, to encourage more activity, to try new things, to collaborate with each other, to not be afraid to reach out to people for a meeting. And I feel that like the more people that get involved that are from within our community would only grow that community more authentically and grow it from the inside out, right? Instead of reaching from the outside to help. So that those tertiary skills, those secondary skills, anything that you could provide for that community, any of your strengths that you can provide for that community. How do you guys suggest to encourage people to get more involved? It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, not many people are doing this, but how do we encourage more involvement and more activity?
Something that I believe is that kind of
Just
moving.
do it.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, exactly what I was trying to say. Like just by example. I'm really inspired hearing what you were saying, Cross. How everything kind of started just from that foundation, having really solid like community space that you had, and that eventually turned into all the jams. And I feel like at least within Swift, that's been our mentality the last couple of years. Is just let's just start doing something. Let's try to understand why we're doing it, how we're doing it. Try to bring our style to the events we throw. Try to play music even that people don't usually hear, and whatever. Just like make something with character that's just like almost like art out of the event that you're making. And then it doesn't even have to be the biggest thing ever. You know what I mean? It's just that anybody can do this, and that the value on a local level of just creating that vibe in that community. I feel like that's why a lot of us like really love this dance anyways, because we felt like we belong somewhere. And I feel like that's something that can be very simple to do. And I guess what I'm saying is that just showing the example in almost like a pretty accessible way. Like, we're not doing not anything too crazy. Like in the video from earlier, that was just a little jam. We just had a speaker, and like, even with COVID going on and everything, you know what I mean? People were wearing masks. We found a way to do it outdoors. But really anybody could do that. So just making things seem possible, and just putting the emphasis on just making something happen with your own style and character. I feel like if that's the motivation, people can come together. And I don't know.
Dope, dope. Anyone else wants to add?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
My bad. Yeah, so one thing I think we really need to start investing in our producers and training new generations of community leaders. I know a lot of people have really led, such as pieces, you've really helped empower a lot of new leaders that are now stepping into roles of leadership in the community, which is a beautiful thing. And saying, yes, you're allowed to try and throw a jam for the first time and have 10 people. It's okay. Think about the first time you hopped in a cipher, on the edge, I'm going to do it. And then you go, boom. It's just that energy allowing people to get over that fear that yes, they can try to make a community program. Yes, I can start looking for grants. Yeah, I do believe I'm good enough to get into this battle, I think there's just an encouraging that we need to continue to do, and continue to make spaces where training that applies to our culture is provided at some form, and is some form of access for new generations.
I think Keen wanted to add something.
Yeah, you pretty much answered it. Yeah, I mean, I'll give a short 2 cents. I feel like everyone had a good answer. I think it's just making people feel special, like that. Like they came home inspired. Like people are out there and they want to find meaning in life. In a very very deep way. And I think it's just the moment someone feels inspired, like they came home and they felt like they did something with themselves. I think that's the most important feeling. And I would say, like, whatever you do, just try to inspire people and make them feel like they're part of the part of the movement.
That's hype. Anyone else?
I just have a quick point. It kind of parallels the two conversations around like what skills can you add to this, like to breaking from other communities, and also like just this idea of just trying it, just do it, like the Nike thing. But like ultimately, I feel like we really do need, like, if you have an idea and something's bothering you and you want to change it, go out and do something about it. Run a small jam, create a cipher, sell your clothing, write your logo, your creative thing, and try to sell it. You may not succeed, but like you'll never know if it would have succeeded unless you actually try. And like I really respect and like I celebrate anyone who tries. And it sounds kind of corny, but like for real, like I generally am the first person to buy everyone's stuff because I'm like, yo, you tried, like you tried. Whether or not it succeeds, like you're getting used to jumping in the deep end. And applying applicable skills, like the other thing of the other conversation, which is just like resonates with me. Like it doesn't matter whether I'm like breaking, like cooking, which I'm terrible at, but I've tried to learn, like, because it was just embarrassing, or even like and it's hilarious that Keen is here, but like playing Pokemon Go, like this guy was adamant on catching all the Pokemon first in like the world, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna beat you, and he destroyed me, and I was just like, that's hype. Like he applied a breaking mentality, just this idea of like, yo, I'm gonna win. Like I'm not playing this game to lose. I'm gonna beat everyone in this game if I can, and like that's not. I'm not gonna like kick my opponent in the knee. I'm just gonna like, you know, figure out how to find the Pokemon through that app where it tells you where the Charizard is at. And, you know, like, but you did that. And I think that's dope. Like, you can apply that creativity to anything you do, you know, or you can sit at home and twiddle your thumbs. So for me, it's just when I see guys like Keen, just like, he has an idea and he goes out and tries it. And, like, you know, half the shit we do fails, but, like, half of it succeeds. Or even if 1/10 of it succeeds, like, you know, if we didn't try that many times, we never would have got there. I know it's hella corny, but like, it's pretty true in the end.
No, I think
I
it's
mean,
really.
yeah, it's pretty much like what we do in dance. You know, it's like if you don't show up to practice, you didn't do anything that day. I think half the time, I don't think anything is that difficult. It's just a matter of you actually going out there and just trying it, and then trying it over and over. And once you hit a wall, you just want to keep doing it over and over again. And eventually you'll get past everyone else that kind of gave up. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, with different skill sets in life, you know? And I learned this through dance, you know, it's like, you know, the first time you do a move, you're gonna crash. Or the first time you go to like a prelim, you're probably not gonna, they're just probably not gonna even look at you, but you gotta just keep going, you know, you just gotta keep doing it. And the moment you stop is like the moment nothing happens, you know?
I think this concept of taking action and just doing it or jumping in the deep end, like you said, is something really interesting. And actually, it brings me to another question that I had for City. There are only a few studios dedicated to training and developing youth breaking in general, and I know your studio is one of them. So I was going to ask you, what advice can you give to encourage more owners to make this work? Whether it be studio owners or even people that are thinking about teaching or sharing their skills to the next generation.
Yeah, I think, you know what, like, I've been running Break City for a little over 10 years now, and I think the main thing is, like, having picking something and specializing in. You know, this goes for any dance studio, really, breaking, or any other style of dance they want to do. We have a specialty which is breaking, and that's what we focus on. And it's really, there's a big difference between someone that takes classes or that same student that maybe later on wants to enter his first battle. And I think the difference between those two things is the driving force behind the classes and inspiring that student through incentives, inspiration, you know, mentors, bringing in guest teachers. Us, for example, we try to do monthly events at our studio, you know, a way that our students can come together and witness these amazing dancers, you know, and get a chance to battle in their local studio, which they feel comfortable, maybe, as opposed to going downtown. So I think, you know, we've tried other styles before, and some of them we do offer at our studio as more of like recreational, like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna try like you know, this type of style. I'm gonna try a crump style, but we're not really pushing that style. You know, it's more just like hey, try it out. But for breaking, we're really putting all our passion into it, and I think that's the really, for example, like down the street, there's an Irish dance academy. Okay, if at my studio, if I was to try to run an Irish dance class, maybe there'd be some people that would try, like, I'm gonna give it a try. But the chances of these students becoming competitive Irish dancers, probably not very good, because the passion is not coming from me, and just the culture is not really there to push it. So, you know, if you are a b-boy or a b-girl and you want to start a breaking program, you're already in you know, a good position. I think also the idea of the studio is highly overrated. Break City started, I was working a full-time job actually at a bank, and I got the idea, hey, I'm gonna start some breaking classes on the side because I think I could do a better job of, you know, the ones that I was teaching at. Let me try to do a little something here, and it was only 2 hours a week. Now, if I was to get a dance studio, a full-time space with running 2 hours a week, my business I would have went out of business, and I would have probably never tried again. So we did a mobile program for the first 5 years. It was Break City. Our students had a recital. We actually collaborated with another studio. We took part in their recital. So they got the full service. They got to dance at a professional environment. You know, every week they got to do a recital, one of which was a battle. That was kind of our twist on it. One of our recitals was a battle, which kind of, you know, was tying into the breaking culture, and then one of them was a show. So, you know, for 5 years we were doing mobile, and then we finally had enough students to really justify getting our own space. So I think for me, the number one thing I would say for anyone trying to open up a dance studio, maybe consider a dance program. And if it proves itself to get to that point where you can, you know, justify a full-time space, amazing, you know, but don't jump into that right away, because you might find yourself putting yourself in a financial deficit and not being able to offer a good service to your clients, because you'll be really like in a bad spot. So that's really it, you know, dedicated, pushing the style outside of the classes. What are you doing to motivate the kids to want to push on? Because breaking is a very hard dance. A lot of people are going to try it and maybe not want to continue, but you just got to keep pushing. And once people see people around them thriving and succeeding, they're going to be like, all right, you know what, I could do this. And it's really just, you know, being dedicated, and, you know, yeah.
That's pretty dope. A question that I have a little bit for everyone. The reality is that most professional artists come from streams outside of what are currently deemed as professional, such as studios, classes, and performance art, meaning where does the next generation usually get their inspiration and keep going? So my question is, if this is one of the goals for this sector, how can we ensure accessibility to disenfranchised youth? So are there other ways to be able to make the dance accessible? And what are some of the ways that you've known or that you've probably done or even benefited from when you got in contact with this dance? We're back at Jeopardy, like doom, 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 doom. Yeah, go for it, Rhythm.
Yeah, just one thing that was really impactful for me when I was young was the rec centers and having the community at the rec centers. Kind of looking back on it, at the time, I didn't even realize how significant it was that we just had this big open space where people were just breaking, like kids would be playing basketball, kids would be, you know what I mean, practicing with each other on the mats, and like that whole sense of community that we had together was really something special. And then it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I realized there was actually somebody behind that, intentionally making the rec center a space for the kids because they saw the value for it. And I just wanted to say, like, that was really important for me, and I feel like that was the foundation for a lot of the bonds that made the scene. That just was what it was, you know what I mean? So I was thinking about CD Rec.
That's hype. Anyone else? Drops?
One of the interesting things coming up now that we're into the Olympics is that there's an opportunity to really lobby our federal government around athletic training facilities and hopefully getting adequate spaces for young people to now have dance that perhaps we've never had before. And like Rhythm said, the community center was the lifeblood of practices in Toronto. So there might be an opportunity for increased, spaces in a not so distant future if we do a good job of solidly and united voice in terms of demanding, like skateboarders did to get skate parks, and we're starting to see more of that happen in Canada, which is great. But where's the B-boys session halls? So we got to be diligent and possibly start advocating more for that.
Pieces?
Yeah, all I know on a simple level, like guys in my crew have taught at City of Toronto community centers most of their whole life, and we've seen generations of B-boys and B-girls come through those spaces who are now like well known, and guys like Styx who, never would have been breaking if, he hadn't been connected through community spaces, and now he's, killing it, with MEC. So I feel like that's like, go get a job at a community center as a city worker, and like City said, like do it the real way, teach breaking the real way, like do it in an authentic way. And whether it's through a studio, and I've been to Summer City, I went to one of the battles, and it was hype, it was amazing because these kids like are like truly engaged into the culture in their own way, you know what I mean? Like you come from your own experience, and but they were doing it really raw and really real to their own experience. And so I would say, like, I know City of Mississauga, they hire people to work in their spaces to just teach rec programs, and those rec programs, like Rhythm said, like, they end up being the breaking programs that didn't exist. You can get paid as a city worker to do it. So, like, it's kind of cool. Like, anyone can get a job with the city, you know, do rec programs and end up teaching breaking, and that can inspire, you know, the next B-boy or B-girl who never would have found this stuff. So just, you know, you can get paid to do it, and similar to before, just do it, you know, like, get out there, and if you feel the need to teach or do it better, like, just start trying it, man. Like, I feel like we're overcomplicating this.
Anyone else? That's dope, man. I think like tomorrow morning there's going to be a bunch of people online trying to look on all their city's website to see if there's an opening for b-boy breaking teachers, you know? A question that I have more for the panel here in-house, and maybe the second part of the question will be more for the people that are with us online. The question would be, what are some of the major voids that are needed to be filled in order to grow the Canadian breaking scene? So maybe that would be the question for everyone here on the panel that's in-house, and maybe for the people outside, what can they notice, whether it be within their communities or even internationally? What are some of the major voids that are needed right now to be filled in order to grow the Canadian breaking sector, your local breaking sector, or even the international breaking sector? Go for it, City.
I was actually talking with Jeff a few weeks ago, and he said something that really resonated with me, and which was, if what we're all doing is not connected, then it's kind of like we're spinning our wheels. I don't know if I'm not going to quote him on that because I don't want to twist his words, but basically along those lines. And I think, you know, a lot of us, when we throw a break jam, it's kind of like we're throwing a house party. You know, we want it to be a dope vibe, and we want to, you know, it's fun, right? It's a fun experience, but I think we all have to connect and make a network. And I think, like, as far as Canada, it's a large country, and I feel like there's no real, like, network of, like, who's the Canadian champion, for example. Like, all the events are just very much individual, and I think we need to, like, start networking, like, you know, nationwide, and start building a tournament structure so we can actually have, like, a something to strive for, especially with the youth right now, because you know, back in like when I started breaking, it was really just about showing up to a jam, you know, win or lose. It was just all about the experience, the road trip, you know, the parties, whatever it is. But now it's different because we have, you know, 10-year-olds getting involved. We have 5-year-olds getting involved. We have, you know, 12-year-olds that are showing up to jams with their parents. And, you know, we have to start comparing ourselves to any other league or, you know, Olympic style, you know, sport, I guess you could say, because we're in that bracket now. And we have that opportunity as opposed to any other dance style. We're the only one that actually has an Olympic platform. So I think we need to start getting together and, like, networking as far as the tournament structure goes.
I know you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like speaking from the outside of the b-boy community because, like, I don't even dance.
It's still a valid perspective.
Like, what I would say is, like, guys, just making sure you make it interesting for people who are not part of that, and do events and things that make everyone want to show up. And for me, someone who I admire a lot for doing that, it's Scratch Bastard, DJ, and he was like a big scratch guy, all from this, like, really, really technical scene from his craft, like doing all these, like, scratching competitions, and now he has his Bastard barbecue. It's like, do you think, like, I'm guessing most of the people that go there don't really know the behind the scenes story of who he is and his technical ability. They just know that if they show up, it's gonna be fun. Like, they just know they want to go, and, like, that kind of switch, it's amazing. So if you create an event that you are using your technical ability to create something that everyone else wants to be there and wants to belong and wants to see you do your thing, that's when you just take it to the next level. And I know someone from the Zoom panel said that before. It's just making sure you make it interesting for people from the outside.
Yeah.
And that's when you should take it to the next level. So how many documentaries on Netflix you watch about things you have no clue about? It's like, damn, man. It's like, F1 is so cool. I didn't know that. It's like, because you get the story, you get the hustle behind it. And if you're able to communicate that, then it's like, there's no limit, right? Because it's not just your community, it's the entire world who could be part of that. that thing you're building.
Anyone else here? Drops?
One thing that I think we should really start working towards paying some sort of standard rate to professionals entering competitions at some point. Because even if there's a prize fees, you're there for the whole day, we should start addressing that what we are doing is work, even if we're competing. So obviously the resources are a challenge. You can't just pay 100 people in an event. But seeing more like, you know, top 8 expos, that they're all paid. You know, seeing that there's more paid battle opportunities is that's guaranteed by a contract, and the artist has a fair wage, that they can go in not worried that they're not going to be able to pay rent on the other side. I think that's an important thing our community really needs to work towards. In some way, we don't have all the answers because it's a real challenge.
But what's interesting is even though we don't have all the answers, the fact that we're actually discussing this is going to get us to get to the answers. Because if we can talk about the problems, it makes it easier to find the answers. Was there something you wanted to add, or with a microphone?
All I'll say is, like, I'm a type of person who shares almost shamelessly, to the point in which sometimes it hurts me, but more times than not, by developing a network of people who just want to share in the way that I share, I've created partnerships across government, corporate, b-boy scene, b-girl scene, like dance scene. I don't really discriminate when it comes to who I connect with. I really want to connect with everybody and share with everyone. Sometimes too openly, where people have jacked ideas and called them their own, and that's fine. And I've called them out on it, and it's fine, because I'd rather it happen in the world than, you know, not happen at all. So ultimately, the beauty is when you share an idea, someone might say, hey, I'm actually working on something similar, I've been thinking of a similar thing. All of a sudden, you work together. But if we don't have those conversations, like, I'm not here to defend any territory of like something that I feel like a piece of a puzzle that I own. It's just like, at the end of the day, if I have something to offer you, I'm gonna reach out my hand, you know what I mean? And I think we need more of that in the community. We need to more just be open to those conversations, not thinking that someone's gonna sort of take something from you, but actually with an open heart. And I think when that happens, things that we didn't dream could be possible, so I'm always just reaching out and reaching out and reaching out, and that's just like, that's how I roll, you know, like, and it's hurt me, honestly, but it's helped me and supported my ideas getting farther into the world 90% more often than it's hurt me. It's hurt me 10% of the time, and the person who copies the idea does it generally a shitty job anyways, so that's on them, you know, but I really would rather work with a banker and a businessman and a community member than just, you know, work in isolation, because I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and I need to learn from other people, you know what I'm saying? So I always reach out. That's my mentality.
Just a shameless plug once again. If you haven't gotten this book, I got my copy. I got the pre-order. I read it. No, and I do think it's important, because sometimes people are looking for answers and they look outside of the community, and you have people that have gone through the system, that have done the legwork already. And the fact that that person was able to put that in a book is something very valuable. So I urge people again, and I'm not saying that just because he's on the panel, like, I bought the book, I read it, and, you know, to be honest, when I bought it at first, I was just like, yo, someone from our community is doing a book, all right, I'm gonna buy it. No, it's the honest truth. But when I actually read the book, I was like, holy shit, he's talking about things that I'm going through right now. He's giving me tips and tools that I can actually use. So if you want to get the book, ladies and gentlemen, don't wait. It's on Amazon. That's where I bought it. I don't know if there's somewhere else that gives you more money. But Building Unity, do get the book. It's going to open doors, and often it's going to give a different perspective that people might not think of when they're thinking about being professional and mixing the dance with the business world.
Respect, man. No, it means a lot. And I say this to everyone. I don't want to be that anonymous person. Like, reach out to me, and I promise you, I'll take every meeting anyone ever asks for, because that's how I got ahead in the things that I did. So, like, yes, it's cool to learn from different resources, and I'm also willing to have a conversation, like, straight up. I hope everyone on this panel is too. Like, I'm volunteering. No, I'm just kidding. But, like, for real, like, I think we need to be available to community members, and I think that is how we create opportunities that we never would have seen before. So respect, man.
So are you saying that being open to sharing as a whole, as Canadians, is what's going to help the Canadian sector? So I'm throwing that question back again, maybe not necessarily for Canada, because maybe not everyone is as connected and as experienced with the Canadian scene, but what do you think, whether it be for your local communities or the international community that is needed right now in breaking? Cross, rhythm, Keen.
I think it's hard for you guys because just air travel from coast to coast. I mean, you guys could go way further. Like you guys could come to LA cheaper than it would be to go from like Vancouver to Toronto, right? So, I mean, I guess, trying to bridge the gap between the west and the east coast of Canada, and and just intermingling more. You know, I think you guys intermingle more in the U.S. than Canada when it comes from those coasts. You know, that's just one thing that I've noticed from up there, and just connecting the cities too. You know, like if the West Coast can't get over there, then kind of unite the cities that are within reach.
Hype. Anyone else?
We definitely talked about this like 50 times, but I think, yeah, of course, I think overall it just needs more collaboration and momentum. And it's like the more people are in, it's great because people get more inspired, of course. And, you know, on the business side, it's like, you know, when you're a promoter and you're going to a corporate sponsorship, they're not gonna, like, they don't know anything about hip hop. It's like what they know is they know numbers. So if you tell them like there's a community of breaking and it's growing and we project that there's gonna be this X amount of people and to grow every year, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna try out a year or two and then sponsor and then keep funding you guys. And there is more opportunities for more events and more interesting shit going on if that happens. The second thing that would help the Canadian scene is, I think this is obvious, COVID needs to go, but we'll figure that one out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I would be in Canada right now, I guess, but I'm not. I'm at home, so.
Yo, I feel you, Ken. Yeah, same. Just I think the only place I can really speak from personally is probably more on the local community aspect, and I feel like a lot of our conversation centers around like, okay, like as leaders in the community, how can we like push, you know, into new places? And then I also feel like that mentality of just do what you want to see can apply just like if you're a B-boy or a B-girl just watching right now, and whatever it is that you want to see in your scene, in your community, I feel like we can affect that with our energy. Just the way that you approach what you're doing will have an impact on the people around you. Whether that's at practice or it's at a jam, if you want to call people out at a jam and try to get more of that interaction going on, whatever it is that you actually want to see happen, just do that. The same way we're talking about that on a broader scale, a networking scale. Like, why is that part of human interaction? Like, it's true in our networks, but it's also true in our immediate circles. So just trying to bring also that into that space. Yeah, there's a lot more to say too, but I think I'll just leave it there.
Cool. Before we wrap it up, I would like to go to each person one by one, and I would like you to share just one final word. Might it be something to encourage people? Might it be a call to action? Might it even be a joke or whatever? Just one more thing that maybe we didn't touch on or that you would like to share. One last final word.
I just want to say shout out to UBL for, you know, bringing this together, because, you know, I'm on the panel, but I'm also learning a lot, and I think this is what, you know, back to the question of how to get more people involved, you know, these types of discussions is really what it's all about. And when we are throwing an event, you know, maybe thinking about like the people around us, what they could, you know, how to get people involved with the event that maybe we wouldn't think about, how to connect everyone so that we are all working together, you know, in some way or another. So, but yeah, just shout out to UBL and the Canada Art Council as well for, yeah. See.
Oh, we're going in order. Shit.
If you want, I can just tell them to buy the book. Once again, Building Unity, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't gotten the book,
No. But I
Well,
guess
now we are.
yeah, for real, it's a lot. But no, honestly, I appreciate like hearing from everyone, especially all over the world too, and like in different places, like people I look up to in this room and have known for many years. You know, it's really dope. So yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope we can have more conversations, and you know, I hope to see more stuff happening in the community where people are using their authentic voice. That's really whatever your authentic voice, like bring that to the conversation, and don't sit behind your computer. Like, please come see me, come see each other face to face, because I know it's harder in isolation with all the COVID stuff, but like we need to be talking, you know, especially for our mental health, because right now, you know, stuff is pretty messed up, and like if you need help, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help.
I guess if I had to sum it up in one word, it would just be flow. You know, we're dealing with so much change right now. It's one imperative that we keep riding whatever waves we're on here, but to do it with style. So flow with style.
And like, I just want to like touch on something that resonates with me a lot. You guys were always saying, just do it, just go for it. Like, you know, like 2 years ago, like I was obsessed with like Kai Tornado and Pomo, and like I saw this YouTube documentary of like Pew Pew music, like 3-4 years ago maybe, because it's been there for a while. I was like, yo, I gotta go to Canada. Like, I gotta go to Canada. I was applying for the Rebel Music Academy, like I would never get selected. I applied like 5-6 times, like never get selected. And they did one in Montreal. I was like, yo, this is it. Okay, I'm going. So I started studying French. Like, mon français est très limité.
Oh la la,
Like,
c'est pas
really
pire.
bad.
It's not
My
bad.
French is really bad. But I started studying French. I got to that level. Like, yo, I gotta go there. Like, I went to Montreal for 5 weeks, studied French. I found out about loop sessions. And then, like, ended up meeting all these guys. And then, like, came back, got a lawyer. The lawyer's like, no, you cannot go to Montreal. You gotta go to Toronto. Toronto's super expensive. Okay, like, I just sold my car. So, like pretty much everything I had. I got to the point where like, yo, I don't have money to buy a suitcase. So like I found this like repair suitcase shop. I should show up, like give the guy a couple bills, and he like gave me like 5 repair suitcase that like nobody picked up. And like luckily my girlfriend came, and we ended up coming to Canada, and then it was just like one of the best things we ever did. Like we were able to like build so many and more things, and we're given so many opportunities. So like don't be afraid of just like risking, you know. We had like hard times where like, yo, did we just blow up all of our savings? Like then we just gotta go back losing and have lost like everything that we have built before. And it's never that bad really. Like there's always so many options, things you can do. And so yeah, just don't be afraid to go out there and give it a try. That's all I have to say personally.
For panelists on Zoom,
I would say shout outs to everyone that's everyone that's putting work right now. I think this year is probably this year is probably the weirdest year for breaking, I think. And breaking hip hop in general survived through so many freaking decades. So shout out to everyone putting the foot forward. Freestyle Session, UBL, and everyone else that's participating, showing up, and just like watch the Zoom call, like just in general, you know. That's the most important thing.
I guess I'll go next, Cross. I'll let you close it out. Yo, just want to say shout outs to UBL. Shout outs to Jeff. Thank you so much for having me on here with everybody. It's really an honor. I feel very blessed to be here. So I really thank you for giving me a spot here to share my energy with you. My message, I guess, to finish off on is just really love the people around you, and just share in whatever way you can. Just with the people around you. I feel like if I look within and say, why do I dance? It's because that I felt people shared that with me, and that's my reason. And I just want to actually something, Kian, that you said earlier when we were just behind the scenes a little bit, like at some point, you're breaking for so long, you're part of the community for so long, you just want to give back at some point. And just remember why you do this. Remember why you dance. Remember why uh, you love this, and I feel like that's what makes you want to give back. So
Last but not least,
My
cross
turn.
one.
Yeah, just shout out UBL, Jeff, and the whole crew. I always enjoy these roundtable discussions. I think the last time I was out there, we had one too. Yeah, man. I think just to cap things off, I mean, I think we all have common goals, whether, they do kind of surround different aspects of the culture, but we all do love the culture and we all want to push it forward, right? So just collaborate, just continue to build, just keep doing your thing, and you know, all this stuff, it takes time. It's not like an instant gratification thing. I know it's like an instant gratification society now, and everybody wants things like that, but it just doesn't happen overnight. So you just got to continue to build, and eventually it just gets to the point where you're like, wow, we came really far. So big ups to everybody on the panel. Thanks for your time, and thanks for having me. And yeah, looking forward to hopefully being out there sometime soon.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's our symposium, Each One Teach Two. I wanted to thank the Canada Arts Council for helping fund this event. This is a dream child of mine, and I think it's one of the first breaking kind of conferences that they've supported. So I want to thank you guys for participating, all the panelists and speakers. I want to thank Afternoon for helping moderate this panel, and I'm gonna close it out with a really basic fundamental of what kind of inspires me to do what we're doing here in Canada and putting things together. And it's I can't think of any personality or any character or any I guess entity that can be inspirational, improvisational, and influential at the same time, other than breaking. And it's amazing because it's something that it's what separates breaking from everything else. The improvisation, the influence, the athleticism, and also the creativity, and how we can translate that to so many different things. So I really encourage everybody to not be afraid to label yourself as a B-boy and a B-girl, because that's what separates you from everyone else. Okay, so that is Each One Teach Two. We are aiming to connect, grow, and sustain, and build communities, and develop arts cultures and arts communities here in Canada, and to help influence others across the world. So that's Each One Teach Two. Bobby, Lee, thank you so much for coming, guys. Thank you so much, man. You guys are the best. Oh, we did it. Man, now I can go stand up. Oh, this is crazy, man. Freestyle session, swift characters, dance elements in the house. Shout out to Loop Sessions.
I don't have anything for me.
I want to thank my crew. The crew is the best. Jarek, Mark, oh man. We're doing this.
Yep.
Check out the vaccine. Rock harder. Rock harder weekend. 2-on-2 and a 1-on-1 here in Canada. Against all odds, and that is it.
Okay, let's keep going.